Hello and welcome to Football-Oranje podcast 15. Coming up in this week's Dutch football podcast, we'll be chatting about the reaction to the Ajax Europa League final defeat and focusing on the latest national team call-ups. I'm Michael Statham and I'm joined by Chaka and James. As usual, we're available on SoundCloud, YouTube and iTunes to listen to and download. Enjoy! Let's begin with the Ajax reaction then to the final. Shall we be a bit disappointed by the fact Ajax were quite comfortably beaten by Manchester United 2-0, or can they hold their heads up high, or is it a mixture of both? What do you two think?
I think we can be disappointed about the final itself and the game itself, but we shouldn't be disappointed at what they achieved with the run in Peter Bosz's first season and with such a young squad. I think it's such a hard issue to speak about because philosophy is sort of everything at Ajax, and we saw a lot of reporters in the English media sort of saying Ajax should have adapted to Manchester United, yes, and should have probably changed their style, but that's the sort of impasse in understanding that the English media has with Guardiola in his first season, because they come from the same culture, and the culture is not to change the strategies, to get better and play the ball on the ground with more pace, to move with more intensity, to press harder and higher, and just find solutions within the framework of the style of play. And the Ajax didn't manage to do that. They didn't manage to adapt to the long ball, and they should be criticized for that. But I think saying that they were incredibly naive to not change when they tried to get better, they tried to sort of move the ball at a pace, but United's midfield unit and man marking unit was the best Ajax have faced this season, and they couldn't really get the ball to Ziyech in the right areas where you would normally want Ziyech. They couldn't find the channels, the direct channels from the back to Dolberg. And Man United defended and closed them down well. So it was disappointing, that aspect, that they got beaten so easy, and the way the goals were conceded from a set piece, and Rita was making a mistake. So it was disappointing in that aspect, but and I should have had the quality to give it more of a go and to give United more of a hard time. But I feel it would be very harsh and people would undermine what makes a team like Ajax great by saying that they didn't completely change the style of play. They didn't go for the long ball, or Bosz didn't try to do something sort of outwardly different, because that's not the Ajax way in the first place, and the Ajax way got them to the final in the first place. And I think to say that they should have changed or altered the thing, I think it's very harsh on Ajax and what they are.
But Chaka, couldn't you argue that when we saw PSV in Europe and get to the final Champions League, because they adapt their style, and final as well, adapt their style to beat Manchester United this season? I know what you're saying, and I totally agree actually, but on the other side of the coin, couldn't you view it that Ajax could change their style of play? Because when we watched PSV in Europe, we were giving them all the plaudits for changing their style, altering their style of play, because it worked and it got them results and it got them far in the competition. So couldn't you argue that when we were talking about PSV in that sense, that Ajax should be learning something from that and adapting the way that they approach the final to get the win, because ultimately their style of play didn't work?
I think the thing is that if you sort of listen to Peter Bosz's press conference all through the stages, especially from the round of 32 onwards, he was always saying in his pre-match press conference, we go into this game looking to do better at what we do than what the opposition does, what the opposition does with what they do. We want to impose our philosophy, and if the other team decide to counterattack, it's fine, but we need to be better at what we do, and that's how we ultimately win the game, and that's how they got this far. And So PSB and final, they did well, and PSB especially did well to get out of the group. They tinkered, and Philip Koku changed tactically in against Atletico Madrid to the point where Locadia nearly got that goal, that away goal, and hit the post. But they even like they didn't get as far as Ajax, and they didn't get to the final. And Ajax will they press, like everyone says, they press like a German team. They played with intensity, and they scored that beautiful goal against Copenhagen. And in the away games, to close down a bit defensively and press targetedly, I think that would have helped. But the fact that they got this far playing their style with their kids, it was very inspiring. And I think when you got to the final, should Boz have done his research and tried to improve and prepare his players in the framework of what they do, and in the framework of pressing for those second balls, being better in the aerial duels, trying to be more outwardly physical, quicker to the ball. I think that it could have been a difference, and also in the situational defending, and that's where the Dutch team struggled. If he could have improved them in the situational defending, that would have helped. But I think the thing is, the philosophy is to be smart and be clever and improve in the framework of the style of play, and that's how Ajax and Guardiola do it, and that's I think, and that's, to me, that's how this Ajax team should play, because you're bringing players through from the ages of 10 and 9 playing that way, and it would be very detrimental to what they are to say, oh, we're going to change. And the fact that Manchester United had to play counter-attacking, the fact that they had to play long balls, that Peter Bosz says, it's somewhat of it's somewhat of it gives Ajax a lot of inspiration going into the future, because they made a team that's far richer than them, that had more expensive players than them, the most expensive player in the world. They made them change and try to counterattack the ball because they were so good at what they do. And I think if it was against any other team in this final, if against Celta Vigo, they would have won easily. So I think sticking to this style of play, overall, I think it was a naive idea, but it's Ajax, but the biggest thing isn't that they stuck to the style of play; it's that they didn't try to change and adapt to the game within the framework of their style of play, and try to do things slightly different without changing the style of play overall.
I think Ajax must take a lot of heart to the fact that they reached the final. It captivated the city. There were many corners of the Dutch press and European press in general that never thought that the Dutch side would ever reach a European final again. And they managed to reach one for the first time in 15 years, when final reached the UEFA Cup back in 2002, I believe. They were disappointing in the fact that I think they appeared to suffer stage fright, in the fact of they were losing possession an awful lot. They seemed to be a bit overawed by the occasion, playing against such a good, solid side that were tactically absolutely spot on. They can learn an awful lot from this, and they must learn an awful lot from this. It's disappointing for everybody. On the day of the final here in Amsterdam, it felt like another Queen's Day, but instead of orange everywhere, you had flares and people with Ajax shirts singing songs in public transport and in trams and in metros, and it was really something to be part of, with 120,000 people on Museum playing as well, and the city was absolutely packed. And I think they can take a lot of heart from it. They must be proud of what they achieved. The final was a bridge too far, but they've knocked out teams like Lyon and Schalke along the way, which was also unexpected. And as I've stated in previous pods, I was at the very first European game they played at home to PAOK Saloniki back in August last year, and they was 1-0 down within half an hour. And it was looking as if PAOK would continue their dominance and go on to win the game handsomely. That game ended in a 1-1 draw, but you wouldn't have thought when attending that game that they would go on to reach a European final, in this case the Europa League final, so they can take tremendous heart, and it should stand them in good stead for the coming season.
Yeah, I agree. It was a big disappointment on the day, though, wasn't it? Because they went to the final with this confidence and style of play that was breaking down teams with ease. But on the day, yeah, there was a bit of stage fright, and at half time it was 1 down, and I fully expected the team to come out fighting the second half, and for players such as Ziyech and Schöne to pull out a moment of quality, but it just never quite clicked. And then after 2 minutes of the second half, the second goal went in, and I think that's when the moment it was a sobering moment for the whole team. Just to go, right, that's a right shot in the heart, because they must have come out thinking we've got a chance with only 1 down, 2 down. Man United, as defensive as they were, it must have been really disheartening. I did think, however, that in the final it revealed a few truths of the team, and perhaps players such as Schöne and maybe Eunice on the left side, Klaassen as well, that they didn't quite come to stand up to the occasion. But whereas a player like Traore, he played well. I thought Ziyech tried, and you could see that he had the quality, but he just kept getting found in the wrong areas. He was always too deep. And they were maybe late in the game as well, that they were panicking a little bit too much, and they just tried one flick too many. And I just was thinking in the end, just put it in the box. It's not their style of play whatsoever, but they had to go for broke, but it just wasn't quite working, and they panicked. And I feel like that they sort of, I won't say let down Ajax fans, but because they're very proud of their team for reaching the final, but for getting there and then playing the way they did, it was a slight disappointment. But perhaps that's a testament to the way that Manchester United was set up and the way Mourinho had them trained for the final.
Yeah, it was. And I agree with James. They lost a lot of, balls, especially in the final third and in the critical phases of sort of the approach play, which, they sort of thrived in, especially when creating chances in the other stages of the Europa League. They've created the most chances in the Europa League for a reason. And, Herrera sort of marshaled and Ziyech well, especially in letting him have the ball in situations where he wasn't dangerous and had to sort of look for the sideways pass and try to move into some space. And Klaassen, they couldn't get the ball to him, the box. I think, there's always this criticism of him where he didn't get involved tonight and he was sort of muscled out of the game. Mm-hmm. But I think just sort of, seeing Matthijs de Ligt's performance, who was sort of one of my men of the match on that day, and just saw how confident he was. And then we saw when Buzz switched up back three and he brought on Frankie de Jong in the final stages. And Frankie de Jong also tried to create something. There was that period where he first came on and he takes the ball from Onana. He plays a 1-2 with the defender and drives the ball forward and tries to create a chance. And that was sort of an indication of how talented the generation coming through is, and how if Ajax manage this summer well, how they will be okay next season. And even though they have to start from exactly where they were last season, no champion, no Eredivisie title, you have to qualify for the Europa League through a qualifier and then the playoffs, and have to sort of begin again. I think they begin again more confident in Bos's style of play, and the youngsters are coming through are very talented. You're sort of okay with losing Klaassen because there's at least 3-4 players from the young Ajax who finished second or third in the Eredivisie who are looking to take his place and really scrapping to take his place. And the worst thing that can happen is sort of selling Tete, Veltman, Davison Sanchez and Davison Sanchez because that leaves you, and Readable because that leaves you in a real bind defensively, and that's losing a lot of able bodies in the defense, and having to restructure the defense will be a problem. And also selling someone like Dolberg would also be a problem because there's no ready-made striker to replace him. But if they manage to keep some of the essential parts of the side and just let go of Klaassen for a big fee and Veltman for a lower fee, I think that will, and manage to bring in a few players. That will be a great summer for them, and it really gives them a platform to build on because they finished the highest points they've had in a while, and they finished the season with the youngest team in the Eredivisie ever, and they beat Willem II 3-1 quite comfortably, and 9 players got their debut this season, and most of them impressed, and a lot of players in the side that haven't played the whole season, like Frankie de Jong, your Abdelhak Nouris, your Justin Kluivert, Karel Eitings, and Richaro Zivkovic is on loan at Utrecht and has done quite well this season. They're all sort of raring to go and having a shot at this team. So I think there's a lot to build on here. It shouldn't sort of deflate the confidence of what happened this season and the run to this season, the exciting football they played this season. And we also shouldn't forget that Peter Bosz has had to restructure a lot in Vitesse. He's had to deal with a lot of players. He's sort of one of the managers that's a master at that, at sort of bringing players to the academy and trying to mold in other players that come in. So I think there's a lot to be happy about with Ajax, and there's a lot to be optimistic about in Amsterdam.
Yeah, players such as Matthijs de Ligt had a fantastic final, fantastic season. So I guess his place in the Dutch national team selection is justified for the coming games against Morocco, Ivory Coast, and the qualifier against Luxembourg. And there were still a few critics out there for de Ligt to say that he still shouldn't be in the team. What do you guys think of the squad, and do you think players such as de Ligt should be there? Is there a balance in the squad as well?
I think with de Ligt, it's deserved. I think you wouldn't have thought that the young boy playing in on Wednesday was 17 years of age, and the way he's conducted himself on the pitch and in the media with his press conferences and with his interviews, it really defies his years. He's shown absolutely fantastic maturity, and he's given himself a fantastic platform to kick on in future. And I think he'll only get stronger. He is exceptionally young as well, and I think he'll be part of squads to get more and more experience. He may not necessarily play in every squad which is picked for upcoming qualifiers, but he may be part of it to gain even more experience, training with the best players the country has to offer. The way that the friendlies have fallen against Morocco and Ivory Coast, and the qualification game against Luxembourg, with the lack of clarity as regards to a new manager, with that only being just ratified and just being known to the public, Fred Grim will take over the reins for the games, and I think it will be a follow on from what he did against with the friendly against Italy, where they lost in Amsterdam. I would take a different perspective with the away game in Morocco, that should they reach the World Cup, although I've stated it's unlikely, it will be good experience for them to play a different nation from a different continent, and they will possibly learn something from it, because Morocco had a quite decent African Cup of Nations, so there'll be different tasks within that game, be a different approach as well. They can learn from it. The same goes for Ivory Coast, playing different nations from different continents. I think they would look to win all the games and try to conduct themselves accordingly. But then attention soon quickly turns to the qualifying game against Luxembourg, which they should win, and the World Cup qualifying game in August against France in Paris. That the attention will quickly turn to those games where there's it means more, and they need to rack up the points should they want to be part of next year's World Cup in Russia.
Dilip has sort of bounced back from that episode at Bulgaria. He sort of bounced back incredibly well. A few weeks after that incident at Bulgaria, let's not forget that, he sort of takes the ball against Heerenveen and drives it at the end of the Heerenveen defense, passes it to someone on the wing who crosses for him to score, and he was brilliant in the Europa League final, but I don't think it's very conducive for him to call him up because, it's very un-Dutch for me to say that, but I think he's still only 17 and it's under an interim coach, and the next coach won't last very long, so the situation's not most conducive for him. It will be more conducive for him to sort of play with the under-21s who are sort of trying to build a new team for the new qualifying, the new UEFA under-21 qualifying phase, and it would be, I think, it will be more conducive for him to sort of learn there, and he will still be playing players older than him, and he will still be playing at a higher level than the under-19s and the under-20s, and I do like the inclusions of Janssen, Villena, Ramsala, Tete, and I do like those inclusions because those are young players that with the exclusion of Janssen have had very good seasons. Even Tete, when he the last time he was called up, he didn't play that much, but he sort of against Italy he played quite a good game, and he's sort of a more well-rounded right back than Veltman, and it's just a shame that Karsdorp can't get into the squad because he would have sort of showed the competition that the Netherlands have a right back, and it's just about the friendlies are just about seeing what Graham, who was on Danny Blind's coaching staff, what he sort of does differently to Danny Blind, because how they sort of work together as a team, and you assume he's gonna be a part of the coaching staff when Avoca comes in. So also just what kind of team that they're exhibiting to Avoca when he comes in. So what kind of players they're working with, because there's a lot to work with in that team, and the sort of fact that the Dutch national team don't have much time is very overstated, because they do have talent and they do have a very workable squad. And these friendlies are just about sort of getting everyone back into the group after sort of a year or two under Blind, and saying it's time to really get to work, it's time to grind, and it's time to work at a different level that we've been working at in the past few years, and it's time to sort of rebuild that faith in the national team with the players, with the coaching staff, and with the fans before that Luxembourg game, that important Luxembourg game. You're looking at building a team for that France game that's coming up, that France game in Paris, which is going to be the hardest game, and which will be a pivotal game in the sort of Dutch qualifying campaign.
Agreed. The squad looks like it's got plenty of options, and you're right that it's a very workable squad. It's a squad that can be manoeuvred around a bit. But perhaps that's the issue at the moment. There's not enough stability, and there needs to be a set 11 and players trying to come in from the outside, as opposed to a lot of players. Any of those players there could start the game against Morocco or the Ivory Coast, or even Luxembourg, the important qualifier. And you're looking for a striker to be the main striker. You're looking for two centre backs there to be the two first choice, but there's not a lot of that. And I just hope that Advocaat is watching very closely the upcoming friendlies where he's not going to be there, and he needs to make important decisions such as who will be the left back, because his options are David Blind, who hasn't impressed too much at left back in the past, but has been okay at centre back for Manchester United, or you've got Viergever, who's been fantastic for Ajax, admittedly better in his centre back role, but has also played left back. Nathan Ake's come in. Where does he fit in with the squad? Where does he play? And I think there's some decisions have to be made as well with regards to the midfield. You've got someone that has to be defensive midfielder, but they're still lacking that player that can break down and play. And Martin Delone is that kind of player, but will he get to start the match? Probably not, because there's always this fascination of playing Sturtman in a defensive midfield role where it's not his strongest position. I just hope that the last match where Vilhena came in for the second half in defensive midfield, he impressed a lot. I just hope he gets another chance there to show what the kind of player he is, because this team needs to be ready for the France match in August. The team that's selected for these two friendlies and the qualifier must be very consistent. I don't think much should be changed. I think there needs to be a starting 11 in place, ready for France.
Yeah, I agree. I ended on the fact that they needed to be ready for France, and I completely agree with the defensive midfielder thing. Something I've been mentioning on the podcast for a while, and the thing is, the really funny thing is that Ajax, the Netherlands have sort of, Strootman was once seen as a defensive midfielder, but he's not. He's shown that he's had his best season at Roma, not playing as a defensive midfielder, more as a box-to-box player, and a more creative player. Darun was sort of seen in that role, but he hasn't played that role for Middlesbrough. Bazoro was sort of seen in that role, played that role last year and played quite well last year, and even under Jonker at Wolfsburg hasn't played that role. And you saw Hendricks start playing that role, got his first call up to play that role. Hasn't played much since he got his first call up due to injury, and just Guardado being the chosen starter at PSV. So you sort of sort of hard pickings there, but you've had Vilhena, who played that role when El Amadi was at the African Cup of Nations during the sort of December to January period, and he was quite impressive in that role, and he was quite impressive when he came on against Italy. But the thing is, he sort of he was impressive sitting in that role, but he sort of also likes to drive the ball forward, and he sort of likes to be more mobile. So he would also need time at times to Strootman to drop in, but it would be a much better system that way, rather than Strootman always being constantly shackled to that role. And I agree with that we need to have a starting 11. But the thing is that you've got an interim now. You've got Advocaat taking over at the end of the season, and the thing you might not get a proper starting 11 to the end of that game. So it's just about sort of setting a platform, getting a chosen proper back four, so that in case you don't have any injuries and things like that, and you have to, and it's sort of difficult for them to create a back four without Virgil van Dijk, who is your best defender, and a defender that's rated at £50 million. So it's sort of a very difficult start to a job in terms of preparing for that pivotal France match, and there's a lot of loose ends that are hanging. You've got to rely on Janssen, getting more game time next season and sort of finding his feet in another league. And you also have to rely on Depay also continuing his form from the end of the back end of the season into next season. And so it's a very complex job, and it will be very complex to find a proper team from what they've got right now. But the thing I said is it's workable, and there is a team in there, and it takes a lot of sort of Danny Fred Grimm and Dick Advocat sort of really engaging with each other, because they both worked with the squad for a long period of time, and they know the best parts of the squad. The worst part of this squad. This is, it shows it back for let's try it for the two friendlies, and take it into the Luxembourg game, and this is where our midfield setup should look like without Strootman playing as a DM, and who plays as a striker and things like that. And it's about Robin he's had an elongated prime, and it's sort of really it seems like the Dutch national team in recent years has been a chore for him, and it's just about playing to his strengths without relying on him and too much. And I think Grimm has to sort of has a job to set this team up for when Advocat takes over, and Advocat has the job to sort of see what Grimm does, and the best and the worst thing of what Grimm's done and what's been done in the past few years, and what's worked and what hasn't, to sort of prepare this team accordingly.
I think Advocat will take it upon himself when he starts the job to mould a team that he thinks can compete in the remaining qualifiers. I think he'll draw on his experience, having been national team manager on 2 previous occasions, where he may well consult with Fred Grim, but he may also go his own way in making his own decisions. And I can see the latter option happening, where when Advocat does take charge, that his first starting lineup, or the starting lineup for the game in Paris against France, may include a few surprises where people might raise eyebrows, but he will go with what he thinks is right for the remaining qualifiers, and to give them a chance of qualifying. There's games ahead at home to Sweden, away to France, and these games will be key if they are to qualify. You have to remember the national team experience that Advocat has accrued with Russia and with Serbia, and with a short stint at Belgium, so he knows how the national scene works. I think there will be a few surprises when he does start to select his own starting lineups, and I think it's just about getting them to compete in the remaining qualifiers and see how far they can go.
Okay, guys. Now we are at the end of the season, but there's still a few matches left in terms of the Eredivisie because of the playoffs in terms of Europe and relegation, and the finals are on Sunday. James, you said that there was a fight in the MVV Roda game.
There was. This is the Limburg's derby, which is quite heated, and the first leg was played in Maastricht, and there was a section of the Maastricht fans who were a little bit overzealous, climbing over advertising boards trying to get to Roda supporters. And the Maastricht player had to go and try to calm down his section of supporters. The return is tomorrow in Kerkrade, where Roda play at home. It's a draw from the first leg, so it's really winner takes all. Whoever wins that game will, in the case of Roda, remain in the Eredivisie, or in the case of Maastricht, return to the Eredivisie for the first time since the year 2000. I personally think that Maastricht are going to do it. I think they'll sneak a win. And in the second playoff final, which saw NAC Breda win against NSA Nijmegen at home, should they avoid defeat, they will also return to the Eredivisie. And my prediction is that we will see Maastricht along with NAC Breda returning to the Eredivisie next season. NEC Nijmegen do have the advantage of playing at home, but I think I stated before with Stijn and NAC Breda have a good nucleus of players and a good team spirit, and I think that will see them through. You also have the second leg of the European playoffs between AZ Alkmaar and FC Utrecht, with Utrecht playing at home. They are trying to turn a 3-0 defeat around, and I saw on the news this morning that coach Erik ten Hag thinks that they only have a 10% chance of turning the deficit around. It's a shame for FC Utrecht because they've won many plaudits this season with their style of play, and Ten Hag, his stock is rising. But it will be a big season ahead for him next season in terms of consolidating, in terms of winning, because they reached the cup final last season where they lost to Feyenoord, and it'll just be interesting to see what happens. I think that Utrecht will win tomorrow, but I can't see them turning around a 3-0 deficit, and then it will be AZ Alkmaar going to the Europa League qualifiers.
Yeah, there was a bit of unrest with Rowe because they had issues on the training ground with the manager, and it's shining through in their performance against MVV. It was error-strewn. However, I wasn't surprised by NEC's poor defeat for NAC. They dominated the game, but they didn't take chances, and that's been their season really. They just haven't really shown the quality to score these goals. Whereas in the European playoffs, I'm as an AZ fan, I'm happy that AZ are winning the playoffs, but I still think it's a shame that Utrecht won't be representing the Netherlands next season in Europe. But I guess either of these two teams will be good representatives for the country going into those qualifiers because they're two fairly decent quality teams.
I just wanted to elaborate on the fact that a lot will depend on who their opponents will be. Because we see season upon season with the lesser teams in Europe, the gap is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I will be very, very interested to see who PSV get drawn against, who AZ get drawn against, and Ajax get drawn against, because if they was to receive a difficult team with the second leg away, although fantastic things have been achieved this season, no two seasons are the same. And the gap in Europe is getting ever increasingly smaller and smaller, so they're going to have to adapt. I think AZ, they managed to have a quite reasonable European campaign this year, getting out of the group of being destroyed by Lyon, and I hope that John van der Brom has learned a lot, because he signed his contract extension for another season that takes him through to, I think, 2019 now. I stated before in the pod that I believe AZ were far too quick to offer that, and he's got to have a solid season next season again to really warrant that extension. And it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, AZ played at a level that they're capable of playing, and the most impressive thing was 18-year-old Calvin Stengs. Massive talent, has scored 2 goals. Got an assist and was involved in both goals on the night. AZ signed him to a new 5-year contract the next day, and he'll be one to watch next season. But it's really saddening for Utrecht, because they could have got to the Europa League through the KNVB last season. They could have got to the Europa League through the Europa League playoff, which they lost last season against Heracles, and they could have got through. They did well this season, and towards the end of the season, they finished 4th, and they were one of the most consistent teams going into the end of the season. And they've sort of fallen at the final hurdle again after sort of playing a good season. And Ten Hag's going to lose Haller next season, and they've lost Boymans and Rubin, so they're going to have to, and he's also going to lose Zevkovic. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to loan him back, so obviously gonna sort of try and get a new striker, and then it'll be interesting to see how they go about recruiting a new striker. And sort of AZ, it's been very disappointing because Van der Brom chose not to play Dabney Dos Santos and Joris Van Over, and Joris Van Over especially has been very crucial in the Europa League playoffs and has played very well. I saw Lucassen, who was the centre back for AZ, referred to him as Messi yesterday on Instagram, and it's you just hope that next season that AZ learn from their lessons. They sort of build around the team that they're sort of playing, because they found a certain structure to the team, and they beat one of the better teams in the Eredivisie quite comfortably. Utrecht, one of the most outwardly attacking teams in the Eredivisie, didn't have a shot on target in the first half, and they could lose Alireza, but they've already got an 18-year-old there, and the season before this season they had won the Johan Cruyff Award for Best Academy for 2 or 3 seasons in a row. So they do have a good academy. They have a lot of good academy products, and I think in the end, if either of these teams qualify will make up going into European football, it's as strong as it has been in a while, because you've got Vitesse who are going to obviously lose Baker, but they've got Van Hooijdonk, who is a very good striker and has played European football at Utrecht before and shown to be a very good European Europa League or UEFA Cup level striker. And they've got, apart from losing Baker, they've got a very settled team. You've got PSV going into the Europa League, and even though they're rebuilding, they'll still have a very strong team. And Coco has reached the quarterfinals of the Europa League. He's reached the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League. He reached the knockout phase and got knocked out by Zenit St. Petersburg the last time they were in the Europa League. And you've got Ajax, who've reached the final, and you've got Feyenoord, who are going to shock a lot of teams in the Champions League, because they're a much different Dutch team and they're more workmanlike. And if they get a good group against teams that are going to expect that they're going to underrate them, and they're going to keep the majority of the squad together, and if they perfect the things that they're good at and sort of improve the things that they're not good at, and Van Bronckhorst imposes a style with a settled team, then they do have a chance to sort of shock some teams in European football next season. So this is the strongest set of Dutch teams going into European football, and something to be really excited about for next season.
Sure.
Just a quick word on Calvin's things. I translated his first interview with the NOS after the first leg, and he, like De Ligt, spoke really well. Was committed to signing a 5-year deal with AZ, made that quite clear, and hence signed the following day. He appears to be very well-rounded for his age. He's only 18 years of age, and I think you'll see him push on next season, starting more games and building his reputation. I think it's a great find. To elaborate what Chaka said about the Youth Academy of AZ, they've invested heavily. And that's starting to pay dividends. They really went for the project of building a new training youth facility, where there was guiding steps, where even the corridors where the players change. If you've got a corridor, you've got the closer you get to the pitch is how you move on. If you've got the first door to your right is where the main youth team play, and then the doors further down the corridor, or maybe the under 16s, under 12s, under 9s, that kind of thing. And it's really conducive to the talent they're building, and I just hope they can push on in that respect.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, Elias Belasani, when Wout Weghorst was describing the AZ facilities to him in the transfer window before he was deciding to make a move, he asked, "Are you talking about Barcelona or something?" because you know, AZ were very particular about what they wanted. They had made this plan. They had went to Rangers and to see their training facility, Marcel Brand, Louis Van Gaal to Rangers, and they've sort of spent the last few years carrying out that plan. And it's seen a lot of players come through. You know, you talk about Tom Hyde, Dabdi Dos Santos, Joris Van Overeem, Gus Till, and Derek Lucassen. A lot of these players have come through the youth academy, and Reggiano Habs is another one. So I think in that aspect, they invest and they spend in a different way from Dutch teams, but they're really using their resources into sort of progressing as a club.
Just one final thing, Mario Been, the former manager of NSA Nijmegen, Feyenoord and Excelsior Rotterdam, who was assistant to Advocaat, has signed on for Apoel Nicosia, the most successful club of Cyprus. I wrote an article on his what I believe offers redemption for him, and that was posted on the site last night. He is a competent manager. He performed wonders with NSA Nijmegen, bringing them to European competition and winning in Russia against Spartak Moscow and against Udinese. So he does have qualities. It's a great opportunity for him to redeem himself and put himself back on the podium of becoming a manager in his own right. And I can see him doing quite well there. He would have learned under Advocaat. He would have learned of his previous experiences, and it's nice for the Dutch manager who's been away for quite some time gets the opportunity to go back into club management, because you can draw a parallel not in terms of quality of reputation, but with Van Marwijk. When Van Marwijk left the Dutch national team, there was rumours swirling around of where he would go. He went on to turn down Southampton, Sporting Lisbon, and is now national team manager of Saudi Arabia. When you would think that with the qualities that Van Marwijk has, that there would be a club that would be more conducive to his talents. So I'm just pleased that a manager who's been away for a while and may well have been forgotten by some people has the opportunity to redeem himself at a big European club in their own country in terms of Apoel Nicosia.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks for talking to us today, and I'm sure we'll chat again next week.